I really did not think when I woke up this morning that I would be filming a YouTube video. I basically decided I was going to film a video an hour ago. It has been 3 years. This is why I quit YouTube. What's up guys, Jake here. For those of you that don't know, I started posting YouTube videos like 8 years ago, and I stopped posting in 2019, which was 3 years ago. I never really explained why I stopped posting, but equally I don't really think I ever explained why I started posting in the first place. And I think when I started this YouTube channel, when I really started this YouTube channel, I knew I was trans, I was coming out as trans, but I had this overwhelming sense that life was going to be so difficult for me because people were telling me, oh, your life is going to be so much harder now that you're trans. And I was like, okay. No one was really talking optimistically about life as a trans person. And it feels like so far away now to think of a time when trans people weren't on TV, when we weren't at like the center of media conversations in the UK. It was such a quiet time. YouTube gave me so much. Not only did it give me a community of trans people, I found so many friends through this, and I really connected with the community in a way that I hadn't before. It wasn't just that, it gave me confidence. I felt empowered to be myself, to talk about my transition, to talk about my gender. And I think if I hadn't have spent so long agonizing over labels and coming out again and again and again on YouTube, I feel like I'd be so much more timid around my gender now. But like these days, I'm working in an office job right now. I'm working, I think, pretty exclusively with cis people. And I'm just like there in all of my trans joy. I will come into the office, like maybe in a skirt, maybe in a suit, in a full face of makeup. And I'm giving trans. And I don't think I would have had the confidence to do that without experiencing this weird YouTube thing, where I just sort of had to learn to be confident very quickly. It was kind of no other choice. It was like being pushed in the deep end and being like, hey, people really like your videos. Now get up on a stage and talk to them. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. But now it's just like, you're looking at me? Cool. Love that for me. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. And that is the reason this YouTube video looks so good. I don't think it can be overstated that when you experience trauma in your childhood, it can really warp your perception of life. I spent a lot of my early teen years experiencing a lot of emotional manipulation. The way that like skews your sense of reality is absolutely wild. I was genuinely brainwashed for a really big portion of my life. And it hasn't even been since the last 6 months of my life that I've really faced it. And I've genuinely said, actually, yes, what I was experiencing back then was manipulation. And oh my God, how much did that affect all of my relationships? All of that was going on behind the scenes whilst I was making YouTube videos. And I never talked about it. I never told people about it. It was something that I didn't even know I had to talk about it at some point in my life. But it was genuinely horrible. It was a horrible thing to experience. And it deeply affected my ability to cope emotionally, to respond rationally to anything. It really impacted my romantic relationships. I was in a relationship for 4 years with another YouTuber called Alex, and for the most part it was a wonderful relationship. It was really like young love, first love. We were like best friends, we were partners in crime. It was wonderful, but at the same time, I didn't know how to cope with being with another person. Without going into too much detail, sometimes he would behave in a perfectly normal and acceptable way, and within my body I would feel like that behavior was unacceptable because I didn't know how to be emotionally independent. So when I was relying on another person and they wouldn't give me exactly what I wanted, it would hurt in a very sort of childlike, deep emotional wound kind of way. And it wasn't fun. But, you know, I chalked it up to teenage romance, just not really knowing how to be in a relationship. And it was also like really, really public, that relationship, really, really public. We talked about our sex life online as teenagers. Not cool. And then I got into another relationship and I decided to make a video about it and put it on the internet. Why not just repeat all of the mistakes from the first time around? Let's do another public relationship. Isn't that cool? Spoiler alert, it wasn't cool. That relationship was even less healthy than the one with Alex. Not that the relationship with Alex was unhealthy. I think it was just being teenagers, not really knowing what to do in a relationship. I look back on it now and I think very positively about the time that we spent together. But I also do just think it was a shame that I hadn't processed my trauma sooner, because it probably would have been an even better relationship. The next relationship after that, which I was so determined to make public, really wasn't a good time in my life at all. That relationship really just, yeah. For anyone that understands attachment styles, and if you don't understand this, I fully recommend looking it up. Wonderful theory, I really relate to it. But at the time, in both of these public relationships, I had an extremely anxious attachment style. For an anxiously attached person, it can be very demanding to be in that kind of relationship, to always kind of satisfy that person's need for like attention. You're dependent on that person to fulfill all of your needs. And I think whilst I was balancing some of that demand with YouTube, I got into this other relationship, dropped off of doing YouTube, and just spiraled. I just didn't know how to, I didn't know how to get what I needed because I didn't know how to provide for myself. It was a really emotionally unhealthy relationship. And I think a lot of that was on my shoulders, but maybe not exclusively. Tea, shade. As time went on, I started to find it incredibly jarring to know how unhealthy I felt in my mind. And then having people come up to me in public and be so lovely, talking about how they watched my videos and how they liked me. I was just sort of like, what? I was so spaced out. I felt like I dissociated through most encounters I had with people that watched my videos because I just didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond because there was an entire lifetime that existed between me filming videos and me meeting people that watched the videos that I filmed. I don't know if this is weird, but I felt like I was role-playing being famous, like some kind of weird Disney Channel movie. Like I'd go home and I'd take off my Hannah Montana wig and I'd just sort of deflate. I was like entering my early 20s, working at a petrol station, stewing in a bit of a depression pit in my spare time, and then like zipping up to London to host panels and record music and meet people. And it felt so bizarre. Like I can't stress enough how there were two pieces of my life. There was a piece of my life that was reality, that was talking to a camera in my bedroom, going to my 9-to-5 job and being really mentally unstable, and then being an internet personality in person, like talking to people in real life that watch my videos. The two realities to me felt so far apart that I didn't know what it meant to be both. I didn't understand how it felt for both of those people to inhabit the same body. It was bizarre, it was disorienting. Is that even how you say that word? Disorienting? Disorientating. Disorientative. This is why I quit YouTube. 3 years passed, I had top surgery, I was miserable in my job, so I quit to do YouTube full time. And then things rapidly fell apart because I was not emotionally equipped to deal with what happens after top surgery, which is a real sort of emotional upheaval. If you know anything about making YouTube videos, you'll know that without brand deals and sponsorships, you're not making a lot of money. I kind of had to face the reality that YouTube wasn't a job for me and it was never gonna be a job for me whilst I was in the emotional state that I was in. So I, moved into working still in social media, still in something I was passionate about, and still being able to talk about trans stuff, but not having the responsibility of it being me. I got this social media job and I moved to London, and it felt like another proper escape. Like I was escaping from this part of my life that I didn't want to be in anymore, that I didn't know how to process anymore. So I moved. and I went somewhere different and I changed my entire life. That wasn't the first time that I'd done that, but it felt like the biggest one. I was going clubbing and I was feeling so fancy with my Starbucks and my London job. And I was just like, yeah, I'm in central London in an office doing a job. It started to feel a little bit more natural, like I was coming back to a version of myself that felt real. Like there wasn't another version of myself that was just sort of hiding in a closet somewhere. Closet. That's not an overplayed joke at all. The thing about working for a trans charity is that working at a trans charity, you will experience more transphobia than you will anywhere else in your life, ever. And that's because I was monitoring social media basically 24/7, just looking at the UK as the UK decided to explode into a media frenzy of transphobia. It was like an apocalyptic level event where every single news outlet decided that it was so hilarious to bash trans people. And that was my job for 2 years, was to read every article, to be thinking about how to respond to that. Should we respond to that? Should we play into this narrative of hate? Is that making it worse? Am I responsible as a trans charity for making the whole situation around trans people in the media worse? It was a lot. It was just too much to cope with as an individual trans person. I was so fatigued reading all these articles that were, quite frankly, unhinged. Just the way they were talking about trans people was bizarre. Blah, blah, pandemic, blah, blah, locked in my house. But I got like reflective, like hella pensive. Like I was just sitting in my room, looking at myself in the mirror, thinking, who the f is that? But then I got therapy. Yeah, therapy, fantastic choice. That's what I needed. Sick. But it was really good for me, and I spent a long time figuring out who I was if I was not an influencer or a YouTuber. And I really liked that version of myself. And it's difficult because I don't think I disliked the version of me I had on YouTube. In fact, I really loved YouTube me. I thought he was really fun. I thought he was random and funny, and I feel like he was the best of me, that version of me that lived on YouTube. To have people care what I had to say, because I feel like I experienced, you know, a good portion of my life where I was silent. And I was silenced, genuinely. Sake. Get the memes out of my head, get them out. Through all of that time, through all of those years, I felt like I didn't once have a moment of peace to think about my mental health and to think about getting therapy. Because before all of that mess, I had dealing with being trans and dealing with not having the healthcare I needed. And you know, as a trans person, when you know you need hormones and surgery and you don't have them and you're waiting years and years and years for that, you enter this kind of like holding pattern of just not really being able to think about anything else in your life, not being able to make big, important decisions in a rational way. You feel like you're not really yourself, like you're just on pause waiting to be yourself. I was a bit of a mess of a person, to be honest. And then I was making YouTube videos, putting on this face like, I am a representative of my community and I'm doing a good job. Oh my God, what an absolute mess. Weirdly, in the timeline of all of those things happening, the least significant thing to me was quitting YouTube. It felt like such a tiny thing. Like it wasn't even a decision that I made, that it just happened. Maybe it just happened because it was what I needed. Maybe it just happened because I wasn't feeling as passionate about it anymore. Maybe it just happened because I didn't have so much spare time to stew in my emotions in my bedroom. But no matter the reason, it happened. And I'm in a really good place now, like scary good. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I feel an absence of depression. And it freaks me out a little bit. Side note, I feel like that is one thing people don't tell you about when you've experienced like depression and really bad mental health through all of your teen years. You suddenly get to a point in your adulthood when things are getting better and you don't understand how it feels to exist in your brain without depression. Like it genuinely feels a little bit scary to be like, where is that comfortable, horrible, awful looming cloud? Like, I got used to her. She was horrible, but, you know, we were roommates. Oh my God, they were roommates. Oh my God, literally. I'm basically a f***ing boomer at this point. That's such a vintage meme. Gross. I am on my 3rd social media job. Funnily enough, I work with YouTubers now. I've come full circle. This is why I'm making a YouTube video, because I'm watching other people make YouTube videos and I'm like, I miss her. Got an itch in my nose. I am in what feels to be a stable, loving, comfortable relationship. We live together in London. I have a therapist. He's great. Suddenly I get to a point where I miss YouTube. I miss it. I genuinely miss it. I miss talking to a camera. I miss having a conversation. I miss connecting with people online. And I do miss the trans community, because I feel like ever since I left that job and I left YouTube, my only connection to the community is through my own trans friends. And I miss feeling like I'm a part of something bigger. And so much has changed in my life and in my head. And I feel like I want to talk about those things again. Like, I want to talk about how I never used to be able to say the word period. And now I talk about periods all the time. I literally, like, I will be at work and I'll be like, I'm on my period today and it f***ing sucks. It's like, it's become like borderline a personality trait at this point that I talk about periods all the time. I don't know if I've gotten to an age or gotten to a point of mental stability where I cannot bring myself to give a if people are offended or disgusted by the concept of a period, but also by the idea of someone who looks like me and has a beard having a period. Like, if you think that's weird in the ripe old year of 2022, like, fix it. I want to talk about the journey that I've been on in, like, body positivity, putting on weight during lockdown and adjusting to top surgery scars, and feeling very firmly committed to the idea that I don't ever want bottom surgery. The development that I would consider getting pregnant, that's a whole thing. I want to talk about birth control. I want to talk about fashion and gender expression and all of the things that I used to talk about, but I swear I'm like so much better at talking about that shit now. I've got such a better understanding of gender than I ever did back when I was making YouTube videos. So, that's the story, that's the sitch. Maybe I'll make YouTube videos again. Maybe this is my grand return to the platform. Who knows? Just have to wait and see. Like and subscribe, click that notification bell, and you'll be notified when I upload again in 3 years' time. But buy my merchandise by clicking the link that YouTube is going to provide for the merchandise that I definitely have. Watch my other videos about gender expression here, or the other one here.